We're live. So welcome everybody to our second Let's Talk About session, and it's the first of 2016, and very appropriately at the start of 2016 we're going to be talking about how to submit to a testing conference, which obviously with my guests here we're going to have a small bit of emphasis on EuroSTAR, as we have our current chair and former last year's chair of the EuroSTAR conference, software testing conference, wishes. So their advice will be very useful if you're thinking of submitting to EuroSTAR this year. So I suppose I should let you say hello first. So Ruud and Shmuel, good afternoon and good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, and I should mention, folks, that Shmuel is he's up very early. It's what, 4 a.m. Shmuel, is that right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, you can see by the curtains, but it's very, very dark outside. So it's...
Okay. So you look very bright and alive for 4 a.m. I have to say.
See that. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sure you say this to everyone that is awake at 4. So that's.
You should, yeah. Must be getting used to it. Right. Let me just share. Go through what I'd like to talk about today. 1 second now. I share this. Where we are. So can you see that? Okay. Shmuel and Ruud.
I can see. I can see it. Yes.
Perfect. Perfect. So obviously Shmuel and Ruud are our guides today, and the discussion is streamed on Test Huddle. So if you just go to testhuddle.com, if you're watching this through YouTube, you can join. The link is there to join the actual discussion, so you can join us there. And also there's a thread as well if you want to submit any questions, and I'll be monitoring that during the discussion today. The loose agenda I had drawn up, this is very loose now, so we'll see how we go. But my idea about looking at submission to a testing conference is when you do submission, thinking about the whole process. So from the beginning, coming up with the idea, developing your idea, what you should include, what you should not include, and how you adapt your idea for the conference team, if they have a specific team for the conference, how you should adapt it. And then we might look at finally what a successful submission looks like. So before that, before we start, I just want to mention what the series is all about. So the Let's Talk About series is it's a discussion. It's not a webinar, so it's not presenters giving you a 40 to an hour-minute presentation where there's no interaction. So it's meant to be a peer-led discussion. So it's members of the testing community with experience in the topic. So obviously Ruud and Shmuel have great experience. So it's interactive. There's a link there for you to join the discussion, so you can pop in at any time and ask questions, or if you want to interact, you're more than welcome. Anyone can contribute. So we have an agenda, as I said, but it's not a very strict agenda. And we don't have set time for questions at the end, so we'll take questions and thoughts anytime during the series. So that's basically what it's going to be all about. So I'm going to kick off with, I suppose, the first question. Whoever wants to start it with Ruud or Shmuel, about when you're thinking about submitting to a software testing conference, where do you start? Do you start looking at the conference first, or do you start with your idea of what you want to submit? So who'd like to start?
I think it's a nice question. I think it's not only because it sounds, but it's also because it's very its essence. It's very much like who came first, like the chicken or the egg. And you need one to get the other, and you need the other to get one. It's interesting. Many times, I think the conference theme and the fact that there is a conference will generate in you the ideas. it will be very hard for these ideas to come up ex nihilo out of the nothing. So usually they will trigger ideas that you already have. Sometimes you don't notice that you have these ideas until you decide that you want to submit for a conference, and you start digging within yourself. What did I do in the past year or before? Did I said something interesting to someone? So you may not have ideas until you hear about a conference, because the whole conference motivates you. It gets as a trigger for you to find all the ideas that you had before. But usually the ideas will be there. You just didn't know that. So it's
okay. I agree. Ideas will be triggered by the conference theme, but one thing I think is important is don't submit because you want to speak at a conference, but submit because you have a story to tell. That's one thing I learned as a presenter myself, but also as program chair. You see a lot of submissions of people, you just feel, I want to be speaking at a conference, but that's not the right motivation. And I think also for this year's conference team, it is not. The conference team invites you to talk about your story, your experiences, how you have learned, what you have learned, and not about someone who wants to speak at a conference. But that's just one thing I wanted to add to that.
Okay, and so if we're saying the idea comes first, then do you find that like how long would you how many conferences say would you submit an idea for, or how many conferences do you think do you generally keep do you specify, look at different conferences and specify submissions for that, or do you think if you have a general topic, like it's a very general area or a topic that's very general, would you submit that to different conferences, or do you find that other, if you're on committees or whatever, do you find people do submit it to different conferences, or what way does it work?
Mm-hmm.
You want to go on? From my side, I do repeat submissions between conferences.
Yeah.
Not all, but not all the time.
Yeah.
Like, once I know about the vibe of a conference and the type of people that attend, and I know the other submissions that the conference have, then I will filter the type of content that I will provide. There are contents that work better with very small groups, content that work better with large groups.
Yeah.
So I will adapt it, but oftentimes if I will talk about things that are getting me busy during the year, like thinking about that a lot. So even when I prepare, I can prepare a different lecture, but it will be a similar idea.
Yeah.
Especially if the theme allows that. I usually do not break the theme.
Yeah.
So if I have, I don't know, 2 lectures and one of them does not fit the theme, then I'm not submitting it, because it's. But if it fits, I think if you look at my history of talking, you will see like talks that have very similar concept, usually different names because they change every time. I add a little bit of something and remove something else, but they are aggruppated in very similar topics. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. You sometimes, if you have a story, you can submit it to several conferences, but it has to be in line with the team. I mean, that's one thing I really learned, is you have to have it in line with the team, but also I think what you see is that once you've given a talk a few times at different conferences, you might not be selected because you've already given that talk. So it is a good idea, like Shmuel says, to adjust and adapt your ideas, because I think it's a continuous learning process. You have an idea, you present it, and you learn, and you continue, and then you have a new topic. In fact, based on the old topic, you have a new version of your talk. And always make sure that that is part of your submission, that it's extended, it's more, it's new, it's different, it's in a different area. But it can be the same, in essence, the same idea. that you're sharing.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. Just go.
I myself am not sure if I think it will depend on the talk. Speaking as part of a committee, if I prefer to see talks that are completely new. If the person writes in the submission, this is a new talk never given before, and then I feel, oh, okay, we are premiering these at EuroSTAR. Or on the other hand, when I see someone that wrote, so I have given this talk here and there and like different places, and I say, okay, so this talk has a very good base. It was already given in different places. The person already received feedback, so it's a very solid talk. So I think that depending on what I read and the submission, so I will either I think I will prefer one or will prefer the other.
Okay. Yeah. I just might go back to our little loose agenda here. So if we're talking about after the conference or idea, then the next thing, if you might talk about is what you should include. So what I thought meant by this, but you can probably give more detail, is do you include obviously a lot of them have a word count in terms of it's usually like 200 or 300 words or whatever, but do you include a lot of detail? Do you include little detail? Do you include references or things like that if you need to include references? Or what should you put into your submission when you're submitting to a conference?
That's a good
Do you?
point.
Yeah, you saw more submissions than me because you saw last year's, and I'm still to receive my bunch, even though I was in the
Okay.
committee in 2012.
Okay.
But do you want to start with?
Okay. Well, what you should include in a good submission is, I think, the main message you want to get across, the main thing you have learned, or the main thing you want to share with your audience, and that sounds silly or obvious, but most people actually forget to put that in their submission, and I think it should be the opening of your submission. So my audience will get this from me. This is what I will talk about. This is my main point. And being Dutch, I'm allowed to say this. The Dutch people always want to include as many points as possible that you are going to share with your audience. But that's not really helpful, because then in a 45-minute talk, you'll be covering 20 topics, and that doesn't work. Focus on the key points you want to give away to your audience, or you want to discuss with your audience. That's one thing. It should be in there. And if possible, some kind of substantiation of why you believe that your idea is a great idea. And yeah, proof, references, no, but just some arguments why you think it is a good idea to talk about the topic you want to talk about. That's what I learned. But don't promise too much, but promise at least 1 or 2 points that the audience will take away if they go and visit your talk.
That's good. I like the substantiation part. I think it's something that started in the EuroSTAR forum last year, right? With your,
yeah.
I think that it's a good thing. So you can the person is defending his right to be in the conference. Now, one thing that people they often don't know or don't notice is that EuroSTAR receives a very large number of submissions. So we'll be reading more than 400 submissions, and many of them we'll be reading them within the at the end of the submission period. So if you add too many details and it's too long, then you get the people reviewing your submission in a very conflicting place, where you will see that you need to read a lot, and this person is taking all of your time because he submitted so many details. So actually trying to make it shorter so the submitter can see at the moment, okay, this is what this person will talk about, should be one tactic to follow. I personally, when I read a submission, I like to be able to visualize how the talk will follow. So if it's a 45 minutes talk, and you write that you will be having this list of topics inside, and I can see how they join together within the talk. At that moment, I am able to visualize. I will not know the entire content because that's why we are bringing it to EuroSTAR, so you can tell the small details. But if I understand how the talk will go and what kind of, if you have an exercise or if you are posing a question, if you are proposing a way to solve a challenge that you had. So I want to be able to see that. And usually you can do that with one paragraph, just telling, oh, this is what will happen during my talk. I will talk about this problem, I will explain how I solved it, I will bring some examples, I will bring a picture of a happy customer at the end, and that way I know what to expect from these 40 minutes, and that for me it's a very important thing. Usually I will be more interested in that than if you actually bring me all the bullet points that you have in your slides. So.
Okay. Well, there's one thing I learned by reviews and feedback I got on my submissions is it should be something, we sometimes refer to it as, it should be something like a fish. You should have a head, you know, just a few short insights into, okay, this is what I'm going to talk about, this is my, whatever you can take away from it. Then there should be the body, explaining all the details in line with what Shmuel just said. Just these are the points I will cover. And then there should be a tail, making the conclusion and telling the audience this is what is in the talk for you. So it should be, well, that's what we sometimes call a fish. It's small at the start, big at the middle, and then in the end you'll bang. That's what my audience will take away. I think now, if the submissions look like that, that's a good idea.
And as with fish, you will differentiate yourself if you put a little spice.
Yeah, so. of course. You can do. We can take it any further. You can spice it up. You can do.
You explain, you give the body, and you say, okay, this is what's special about my fish.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just on the practical level, would you? Does things like bullet points turn you off, or like just to emphasize like the key takeaways or stuff like that, or would like to see all text, or how does things like that? Did you ever think about things like that, or did it matter at all?
No, personally, I don't care much about bullet points in the submission. If everything is bullet point and I have get the feeling that, wow, this guy will make a slides that. If I can see that he copy-pasted the slides, then I will get a little bit afraid because I understand that the slides are very are like this. So if it's a great topic, then we would work with the person to try to make the slides more interesting and engaging. But usually not. In fact, it can help. Right? Remember that we are reading a very large amount of submissions. So if the person can make it briefer by bullet points, if they are done well, then it can help.
Yeah. Ruud, have you any thoughts? Or
well, I don't care. Like Shmuel said, I don't really care about bullet points. But if it's just bullet points, no, it has to be readable and understandable. And usually, if it's just plain text, usually if you submit, you can make somehow noticeable that these are the bullet points you're talking about. So I don't really care that much about that. I think it should be straightforward, the submission. It should be self-explanatory or something like that.
Explanatory, yeah.
Explanatory, yeah. Okay.
Perfect. And so moving on then, so we've covered basically what you should include. So my next question is, what should you not include? What do you find people stick in, from your experience, Ruud, that you think is not necessary or they shouldn't? Or what do yourselves, when you're submitting, both of you submitting, do you leave out stuff you know that you shouldn't include in a submission? So what's your experience?
I know last year we as a team might have missed several great talks, but they were not included because the person submitting was very proud of what he did and explaining that he was a great guy and he was the best, and you know, it's a bit, you know, I'm sorry, that just turns us off. We're not here to listen to a great guy. We're here to listen to great story presented by someone who can present. And it's not about you, it's about the topic. That's one of the things that turns me on. So don't brag about yourself. I mean, that will be in your biography. It's not you who did it, it's the context that did it, to put it like that.
So you taught them a lesson.
I hope I did. So this year you might not find too many of those.
Okay, I hadn't thought about that, but I think it's an interesting point. Like your submission will show us a picture of your style, and one thing that I hope to have in the conference when I bring speakers, and it's that I want to have speakers that will not only do the work during the 45 minutes that they have, but because they will be around in the breaks and during lunch, they will be able to talk with and expand their influence. So nice people are preferable than not nice people. It's I'll be reading 450 submissions. I know so it will be hard to say that I will be able to identify these from all of them. But that interesting point. I haven't thought of that. Now I'm not sure if adding sometimes I remember that people added the actual content of the talk, and I don't think it added much value. Again, if I can visualize what you're talking and I understand the message that Ruud mentioned, then I don't need the details at this point. If you don't have a clear message, then these details will help me. That it's what I will try to figure the message by myself. But otherwise, it's not something that will really help. Now things that another thing that can help is that I should have added that in the previous question. So you'll have to edit the video now.
Okay.
Is that sometimes we'll be in doubt between submissions, and the initial review is also is anonymous, and you have a bunch of reviewers. But at one point, we start to look about who's giving the talk, especially for the talks that will be in doubt. And if it's many times, it will be someone that we don't know, and I don't know if the person is a good speaker, is a bad speaker. So if you have any experience speaking anywhere, and you tell me in your submission, oh, I've spoken in this conference, and it was my experience was this and that, and even better, I have a video of me speaking. Look at me here and there. That is great, because then I can solve my doubts by saying, yeah, okay, this person is a good speaker. So I had two talks that on the content they were in the same level, but I like the way this person speaks. So if you tell me about your speaking experience, it will for me it's something that will add a lot. So you can add video. You can, if you don't have any video from any conference, you can make one and then say, okay, I recorded myself talking. Or even at work, you give something at work. Okay, I had a small talk at work, and this is me. And now whenever we get in doubt to see, okay, we like the content, let's learn more about the person, because we'll be in doubt of what of the submissions to pick, then that can help me decide. So do edit if you have information about your speaking experience.
Okay, yeah, that's I think that's fairly clear. I wanted to talk about then changing or adapting your submission to a conference theme. Just from your experience, maybe you've submitted before to like EuroSTAR has a different theme every year, so it adapt to that theme. But even other conferences might have different themes that you have to adapt to. So if you have a proposal, how would you go? I might ask first, how would you go about adapting your team to fit in, or your proposal to fit in with that team? And say from your perspective, Ruud, what sort of, based on last year, what sort of are the best examples you've seen of people getting the theme right, or in their proposal, or having the proposal that fits exactly the theme? So I might ask talk about the first part first, about adapting your proposal for a team, and how do you address that, or how do you go about doing that?
Well, I do it myself. If
Yeah.
there is a specific team, I will change my submission. I mean, it also usually means that I do have to change my talk. I mean, there are some aspects that need to be mentioned. Like last year, I talked about walking the testing talk, which means I want some practical experience in that. Now, it's not enough just to mention that in your submission. You have to actually find out what your key message is regarding or in line with the team. So it's not just incorporating the team in your submission in some wording or stuff like that. That's not enough. You really have to adjust it to the theme. That's my idea. And in general, if you have a story to tell, and last year it's more practice, next year it might be more on learning or something like that, all aspects are usually covered in your story, but it's just that you have to put the emphasis on the other part. Sometimes put the emphasis on the theory behind it, sometimes put the emphasis on the practice, and sometimes on the people and learning and sharing and stuff like that. So yes, you do adapt it, and it is possible, but it has to be obvious that it's not something you just do by wording, but also by your story, adapting it to the team. That's one of the challenges I have currently in submitting for this year's EuroSTAR. So
I think one of the things that happened, I remember, is that some people will have a presentation already, and then they see, oh, the theme is learning to test, testing to learn. Then they take the presentation that they have ready and the abstract that they submitted somewhere else, or even to EuroSTAR last year, and they change just to make sure it says learning and testing in enough places during the abstract. Yeah, so that's a trick. It's like well, they say, like you have a grep-based CVs, so you write a lot of keywords in your curriculum to be able to pass through the machines. So because we don't have machines reviewing the submissions, then you don't need to pass that part. So it's not using the keywords during your abstract. It helps if you change the actual content. So you can reuse a presentation, but like make it fit. Right? So many ideas are very generic. So I believe so. Ruud mentioned the difference last year. It was about practice. This year it was about learning while you test. Now a lot of topics would be able to fit both of them.
Yes.
But show how you are weaving your lecture in a way that will talk more about practice or talk more about the craft of learning while you test. So and that is done more than just changing the title. So if if you change the title to something that has to do with learning, but inside it's, I don't know, I can see themes from 2015, from 2014, from 2013. I will notice that it's the content is being forced into the presentation. So it's not hard work. A new theme doesn't mean you need a new presentation. It just means you would come to it with a new approach.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense. So probably one thing I actually didn't mention on the loose agenda for today, but it came to me make sense that we should include it, because I'm sure it happens to everyone, is when you're sorry, we never actually talked about the second part of that question. I should go back, Ruud. It was about how successful people have adapted their teams. So just going on examples you've seen last year, did you see people based on your experience that got the team straight away and fished it perfectly into conference? And did you see examples of people just sticking in, as Shmuel said, those keywords into submission? And like, what is the difference basically between the people that get the team right and people that are just sticking in words to meet it?
It's in fact what Shmuel already mentioned. He said, okay, this year it's about learning and testing, so we'll take the same text and just put learning, testing, learning, and stuff like that. That's exactly what you see in some people's submissions. They just add some words, and it's not adding the words. It has to be an elevator pitch in line with the team selling your talk. And that means that your talk has to be in line with the team. It doesn't have to hit it right on the mark, but it has to be in line with the team. And that's what you see. That's the big difference. You can actually notice if you read the English, if you read that the sentences have been adapted, or if the sentences have been created. And I think that's a big difference. I don't know how you do that, but as a reviewer, you will notice. If it's especially written because in line with the theme, this is what I'm going to talk about, or if it's okay, in line with the theme, I have adapted these sentences for you. That's what I saw last year a few times. And some people even just stated the theme. I will talk about my experience in mobile testing because I've walked the testing talk, and that is the conclusion of their submission. That's not enough. That's definitely not enough. So that's what you shouldn't do, to put it like
that. And the themes are so broad that it's not hard to do.
It's
If the themes were, let's talk about, I don't know, a very specific thing, I don't know, using JMeter for performance assessment of Apache servers, then it's hard. Oh, how will be able to fit my talk into this theme? But the themes are so broad. It's like they're almost an asterisk.
And I think one of the things that I do appreciate as a reviewer is that you notice that someone has taken the time and put some effort in to actually make a good talk that would be able to fit into the program of a conference. I mean, that's another thing. If you just copy paste and adjust a little, then you get as a conference, you get the hey, please take me seriously, because it's a serious business being at a conference like EuroSTAR. So that's another message you don't want to get across. You want it the other way around. You say, hey, I want to be on the program because I have a great story to tell, and this is, well, and it should show effort. That's in fact what you should have behind it. And you don't have to be an expert. You don't have to. You can be a novice. You can be whatever you want, as long as you show that you've put in effort and try to make your story fit with the team. That's what you're looking for.
So before, I got distracted there, but I think some very good points. But I wanted to bring up before I had to correct myself, was talking about being rejected from your submission being rejected. So I don't know if it's either happened to either of you. I imagine it hasn't, but when it does, I'm sure. When it does happen, what do you do? It's like a question: is it you, or is it me, or the content? You have to ask yourself, I suppose. But do you find that it can be when you have submission rejected? Do you tend to alter it much, or do you think, well, it must be them because I think this submission is fairly perfect? So, what do you do in those cases? There's instances that it does happen. I'm sure rarely for you.
To be honest, I think my 12th or 13th submission was the first one that got selected. So yeah, I've been there, done that. It's often that you submit something and you don't get selected. And by the way, there could be several reasons. Maybe because I was last year on the program, they don't want me twice. Maybe because my talk is not
good idea. No, kidding.
No, I agree. Doesn't. I wasn't on the program. Well, so
right.
That's not an issue. I wasn't on the program, so no issue for me this year. No, but I mean, maybe they didn't like my talk, or maybe there was someone who had a better talk on the same topic. I don't know. Sometimes, if I really don't understand why, I just ask politely, can you explain to me why I wasn't selected? And on the other hand, sometimes I think, well, too bad. Sometimes it just doesn't fit. And I don't get too worried about it. Usually it's not you, it's not me. Maybe your colleague got selected and they only select 1 or 2 people from the same company, or 1 or 2 people from the same country. I've had all of that kind of stuff happening to me. That's okay. It's not. Well, if you can get feedback, it's great, because then you can learn.
Yeah, I think I also got my rejections, even from past EuroSTARs, and many times they were for like technical reasons, I usually I try to ask, like, yeah, we already had people from Intel coming, so we don't want to have 3 of the same company, or we trying the countries. And sometimes it's because the lecture didn't look good enough compared with all the others. So if we have about 450 submissions and we have about 40 slots for speakers, so it's 1 in 10 more or less has to fit. And many times I'm certain that we will have much more than 40 submissions that we will like. So it doesn't mean that everything that we reject was a bad submission and a bad idea. So I'm also sure that I will have good talks by good speakers that I know. I say, okay, yeah, I've seen this guy speaking. I wish I could fit him in, but it doesn't fit the rest of the program, and so it doesn't really will mean that the submission was bad. On the other hand, many times the submission will be bad, and then if you ask, we'll be able to answer to you and say, well, it was so short that we were not able to see from the submission content what the talk would be like, so we didn't go with it. So it's worth to ask. You will not receive a reason in the email that you get that's saying that you got accepted or rejected, because I think that will be probably too much work for the EuroSTAR staff. But if you ask, usually if you ask back, these emails will come to the committee and we'll be able to answer you. Most people don't ask, so that's it's easy to answer only those who ask. And we will be very possibly we will be honest and tell you, well, I didn't know what the talk was about, and that's why I rejected it. Or I will tell you, I don't know, the talk we had 4 talks on the same topic, and the others seemed more fit. I would prefer to reject on these grounds than on the technicalities like countries and things like that. But these are things that I will only know once I get all the submissions. Now you will be rejected from conferences, even when you are a beginner and even when you are more seasoned speakers, because conferences don't have space for everyone. And that's why you keep submitting. And of course, EuroSTAR is the best conference, but at least in 2016. But you will want to submit to more conferences, and one conference will reject you, the other one will accept you, and that also gives you opportunity to give your talk and see, okay, learn more about it, and then submit it again with a different concept the year after, because you will have learned from it, and then you learn from how you gave the conferences a different place. You will learn from the feedback you receive on your submission, and then you'll be able to craft a much better submission for later.
Yeah. So it depends on, I suppose, a lot depends on feedback. If you're plan to stick with that submission, or you think that's a good idea where you want to submit it in future. I just wonder, how long do you tend to, if you get 2 or 3, or I don't know if it's happened to you, if you happen to get 2 or 3 rejections from the same submission, I presume that means I presume anyone submitting that it's time to take a long, hard look at that idea or that submission.
Yeah, that may be good feedback in itself.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it can be that your idea is so groundbreaking that no one is getting it right away, or no one is confident enough to put it forward. So maybe you have to try it again and again and again, and the 7th time you will manage. But then change the abstract so people understand that. It's like, oh, that's what he's talking about. This is a completely new idea. I want to put it on stage to see how everyone reacts to it. So
yeah.
So use rejections as feedback. You don't necessarily will change the presentation. You may change the way you explain it. You can also do, when you submit, you don't need to wait for the conference committee to reject it. Before you submit it on the page, you can pass it by friends and people who are experienced speaking, and say, hi, look at this submission. Will you accept it for a conference? And then you will get this first feedback even before you submit on the web page. They will say, well, it's an interesting idea, but you should add more about what exercise you are doing, or you should add more about what was the origin of the challenge. And then you already received your first rejection on a virtual and very safe environment, and then you can make a good submission and put it on the site. So use friends to review it. Friends are usually glad to do it too.
That makes complete sense. So just our final topic, or our final agenda or point to discuss today. Just talk about, considering we've done everything of what to include, what not to include, adapting to conference team. The last question before we might take a few questions from viewers is put to you is what does a successful submission look like? So I'm sure that's easy answer in one sentence or less, but in general terms, Ruud, you mentioned about having the body of a fish, but anything else that a successful submission would look like?
I think this is mostly what we discussed. So if it's clear, if I can visualize the talk, and if it fits the theme for this year, it should be able to tell how you are teaching the delegates to learn while they test. So if I see that this is part, so there's a lot of learning, there's a lot of thinking about our own craft inside, and the message is clear, that should be enough. I don't know, more details in the previous questions.
Yeah, I agree. It has to be catchy. The submission has to be catchy, you know? Like Shmuel said, you have to be able to visualize it. You have to be able to say, okay, this is what he's going to talk about. This is what she's going to show. This is what she's going to share. That's the idea. That if you get that from it, then it's successful. Oh, well, then it could be successful, and then it could be bumped off because there are several other successful ones on the same topic. But that's too bad then at that point in time.
Now, I'd like, before you move to the other questions, Aaron, I did want to speak about one topic. I wanted to talk about the people that are submitting first time for a conference.
Okay,
now, it's part of your questions there?
Go ahead, the people that have asked,
Okay, so I'm answering these people. I had the same question as them. Now, EuroSTAR, in my view, is a very good conference to be a first speaker. It's a very big conference to be a big speaker in, but it's a very good one because it's a very friendly place and you have friendly speakers helping you. And there is, I think I see every year, and we'll certainly do it this year, that the committee tries to have enough space for people speaking the first time. So it's not a conference that is based only on veteran speakers and seasoned speakers. You will see every year a very large amount and percentage of speakers that are the first time they are speaking at any conference. So do not be afraid of jumping in and submitting. A few days ago, we received a comment in the EuroSTAR blog from Paul Coyne, and he told about his story of the last year. It was the first time he spoke, and he tells about the experience of being accepted, the experience of working on the presentation, on actually giving it. It's a very nice comment, and he says that many times as a first timer you would have doubts and you say, well, I know my idea is not good enough. Why would anyone want to listen to me talking about this or that? But even if you think that it may look to you like something that's not special because you've been doing this for 2 years, but there are 800 attendees in the conference. Many of them have not done anything similar to what you did. So open up and to do that. Also this year we are partnering with Speakeasy, like EuroSTAR did last year. And Speakeasy is we may share the link. I think I'll write something for the blog. Is a group of people that help first timers to get into testing conferences. They will help the people write the abstracts, and then they will help them create the slides, and then they will help them work on their presentation. So it's a very safe way to get into a conference as the first time. You will get very, very well prepared.
Raji, who got the Speakeasy slot last year, she did a great talk on, and it was very practical because you mentioned there about people thinking about maybe their session mightn't be relevant enough. And like hers was about working from home basically as a software tester and how you work with the team if you don't see them and things like that and setup and all that. It was a very practical talk, and I was at it actually. I thought it was very impressive. And it was great for someone like herself who had never presented at a conference before to get that opportunity. So definitely, Speakeasy is definitely for if you're anyone out there who's hasn't talked before, it's a great way of getting coached and getting help and reviewing and altering your submission to get the best chance of being accepted by the conference. Definitely. I know as Dan has joined us there. Dan, if you want to, Senior asked a question on
Hi guys.
How are you, Dan?
I'm very well. Good morning or good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good to see you.
Now, I didn't know whether we could join on here or just via YouTube, but the link takes us to this Hangout. So.
Yeah, yes. As I said, the more the merrier. But
Okay.
I seen you asked a question on the Test Huddle forum, so I might as well let you ask it in person now, seeing as you're here.
I think you've covered most of it what I asked already, but I have spoken at conferences before, smaller ones than EuroSTAR, and I've now attended my first EuroSTAR. So with a talk or a workshop that's been accepted before or even rejected, how would you personally, and I think you've covered this, tailor it to the specific needs of EuroSTAR? Because I know it's a very unique conference in that it's larger, it's much more corporate in that you've got a lot more corporate sponsors, but you also have a larger audience that might expect different things from, say, a smaller conference that's, say, more context-driven versus one that's more traditional testing, for example. So I just wondered what your feelings and viewpoints. And the one I'm going to be submitting on the workshop as well is on security testing, which is the area that I work in. So I just wanted to find out what your thoughts were. That's all.
Okay, I think talks that were rejected before in EuroSTAR or other places, they didn't get irrelevant just because of that. In fact, you can write that okay, that this talk was rejected somewhere else, and but still, I think it's a good conference. Like this perseverance could actually help. Now, so I'm trying. I think I'll need you to repeat the parts of the questions again. But submitting, you can submit anything. I guess submitting for a workshop and writing, I want this to be a workshop, is a good point. In fact, I did that last time, and I explained why I submitted a topic, and I explained why it would work better as an active workshop that happens at the end of the conference, like where you are giving 2 slots, and I explained why it's better like that than on a normal track. And well, Ruud accepted it. I believe that also not many talks are submitted for a 2-hour workshop instead of normal. So also maybe the competition there is a little bit smaller, but try it if you think it will work as a workshop. So this is a security, but I don't want to teach about security. I want to make it active. So explain that. Okay, remember that I want to be able to imagine what you're talking. So if you explain, I want 90 minutes because I will have one exercise where they are, I don't know, doing some penetration testing in a server that I will put on, or I will demo myself doing any I don't know, other type of security attack, and then they will see more theory, and then I will do another demo or I'll have a video of something, and then I can see, okay, yeah, this fits a workshop and better than a track, and like, it's part of the substantiation that Ruud told before. Like, explain to me why you think a format is good.
Okay.
Now, I think that you asked more parts that I didn't cover in my answer now. So
it was more about tailoring. I think you have covered it, and the early conversations you've had have really kind of shone some light on what you expect. From the previous conference that we had in the Netherlands, Ruud, it was a very diverse conference. You had a lot of different speakers from a lot of different places. You mentioned Raji earlier. She's actually a colleague of mine. I work with her. She works remotely up in Birmingham, and I work remotely most of the time in Somerset. It's about 60 miles from the office. So, I can understand, why you felt that would be a good one to have in there, because remote testing or any kind of remote working, it presents all sorts of challenges. And Raji's specific experience there is very, very deep, very, very knowledgeable. She was able to convey that in a way which I felt was very rich and very deep. It wasn't shallow learning at all. It was very, it came from a place of deep knowledge. I think that's the thing we really need to encourage at conferences is a deep learning. Yes, you may only have 50 minutes or an hour and a half to really get your message across, but you want the people that are watching it to come away with something that they can use, something that they can justify to their management to say, yeah, you spent a couple of grand on me going here, but this is something I can add value with when you get back to your businesses, back to the work that you do every day. That's where the real value of somewhere like EuroSTAR is. It comes up, and that's something that I got in spades when I came to master it. It was a fabulous experience, my first EuroSTAR, but it was a very good conference experience. I was very lucky to get the opportunity to go. So I think the both of you should be congratulated for the work that you do. So it was a fantastic. So I'm looking forward to
so Raji is, again, like Ron said, a good example of how Speakeasy can help you polish an idea, because then they will work with you and say, this slide you don't need it, or this topic you don't need it, talk more about this. Now regarding I now remember another topic that you mentioned, more or less on EuroSTAR and the style of EuroSTAR. Now EuroSTAR, in my opinion, may be one of the friendliest large conferences. So you have small conferences that are very friendly, and you have large conferences that are very, very dry. But EuroSTAR is for its size, it's very friendly. There's a lot of community going on, there's a lot of friendship going on, and activities during the conference, after the conference. So it's not a frightening one. So you can, if it's your first time, but it's a place that will make you feel very safe and at home. The people in the audience, they want your talk to be a good talk. So they will help you and collaborate with you for that. So even though it's big, I think that it's a great place to talk the first time. And
I think I agree. I readily agree with that.
Okay.
Thank you for letting me ask questions. It's great. Thank you.
Okay. Ronan.
Do we have more from the audience? Oh, he's on mute.
He's muted, yes, but he doesn't know. That's a nice thing, isn't it? He's talking.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry,
I can try
was on mute. Yes, I'm muted.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh.
I'm a bit slow. Yeah. I see the big red button there now. Yeah. Thanks for that. Sorry. Ruud, or sorry, I was going to say. Well, basically all that spiel was there is basically asking. I have a question from someone saying, what do you do when you submit more than once, or should you submit more than once? And do committees or whatever care if there's more than one submission, or do they view those people differently? So, what's your opinion on multiple? I'm sure there's more. It gets a bit ridiculous if you've more than 5 submissions or something. But what's your opinion on multiple submissions? Anyway, more than once. You can let me. What's your thoughts?
Cool.
I think that's the point. If you submit 8 things, then we'll get the feeling that none of them is really related to the topic. You just took all of your ones. But you can submit more than one. In fact, last year I submitted more than once, and I was accepted twice. So it's so apparently it doesn't really hurt. I think I don't see any problem.
No. But if you submit more than once, please make sure that it are different stories that you want to tell, that you want to share. Like Shmuel just mentioned, okay, you could have one talk about how we taught a department to do better acceptance testing. That could be one of your topics. And another one could be, we work together with the operations team to improve regression testing in production, whatever. Two totally different subjects. Both can be very worthwhile being on the show, but not the same story in just different variations. That's not working. That will work against you. At least it did last year for some people.
Yeah.
But that's my personal opinion.
Great. And another question I have here is, well, it's sort of related to what you were saying before, Shmuel, about being a first-time submitter or first-time presenter at a conference. Does your, if you have previous experience of a lot of presentations, does that make a difference to submissions or not? So, what do you think? Does it make? Is it all about the content?
Again, the question is, if you have given previous presentations, then
yes. Does it make a difference on the way the people review the submission? So if basically, I think the question is, if you've spoken a lot at a lot of different meetups or one-day events, does that make a difference to your submission in terms of how it's viewed?
Yeah, in my opinion, yes. Again, at one point we'll have, we get 450 submissions. Some of them we decide I don't want these in the conference right away. Some of them say, "Oh, these are great. Everyone that reads the submissions wants it," and then we have a bunch that we get in doubt. Yeah. Now I am risking the time and the trust of the delegates when we select a speaker to speak. So if you have spoken elsewhere and you tell me, hey, I spoke, even if it's small places, like I spoke at our local meetup, I gave some lectures at work, then it makes it easier for me to understand the type of speaker that will come. If it's the first time, and then you say it's the first time I'm speaking, and it also helps, remember that we want to have first-timer speakers as well, speaking as well, so it will put you in this group of first-timers. Yeah, I think that any information you can provide in the bio about your experience, there is a field where you should write about your previous speaking experience. Yeah. So fill it, and like I said, if you have an actual video of it happening, we will not see the videos for all of the submissions, but it may be that yours is the one we are debating less, and we will take more time to decide on it, and we will enter and see the video in that case.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Have you any thoughts, Ruud?
No. I think okay. No. I do have many thoughts.
Yes.
Not. I don't think I can add that much. Into what has already been discussed.
Great. I think we're going to wind it up there because I sort of run over time. We said we'd have 45 minutes, but it's ended up being an hour. Have you any concluding thoughts or you'd like to or anything you'd like to comment on before we leave, guys, or are you just happy to leave it at that?
No, I want to encourage people to submit. You have a very unique story, even if you think that wherever you want to talk, someone else already spoken, then you have your experience who no one else has. So the submits, we are not afraid of having this year 550 instead of 450. So submit away. Make sure it's a personal story, something that you care about, that we will feel, oh, this person will talk from the heart, and it's based on experience and it ties to the team. Yeah, we're waiting for your submission, and
so great. Thanks very much, Shmuel. And Ruud, have you any concluding thoughts?
No, what I always say is, Shmuel mentioned it, submit because you have a unique story, let someone else review it and just ask them, would you go to this if this were the description of the talk? Make sure that it's inviting, and because when it's inviting to the delegates, it will be inviting to the committee to select you, in fact, and that's the main thing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And if you have the chance to attend, like even if you get rejected, but you have the chance to attend, like after you go to a conference, it's much easier to submit for it afterwards.
Yeah.
So you get rejected, but try to see what was the vibe, what happened, what type of talk were there, and then you will understand more about the relationship between your submission and what actually happened, and then for next year you'll be able to give a much better submission. Really, it's a good conference to attend, not only to speak.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Thanks very much, guys, for your taking out the time today for discussing this, and thank everyone for watching. We'll continue this discussion on Test Huddle if you want. So if you take a look over at testhuddle.com, we'll have there's discussion there, so you're more than welcome to submit or talk the questions if you have any questions or anything like that. Before I go, I just want to mention next month we're going to have Duncan Nesbitt and Simon Shriver, who runs the 5 blogs. If you might recognize the name from that, and they're talking about being an independent tester. So that's next Thursday, the 25th of February at 12 o'clock. But apart from that, thanks Ruud and Shmuel. It was really good having you, and thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you all next time. So take care, everyone.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.